Good evening, America. You're watching Real Talk, and I'm your host, Stitch. Whether you're listening on Spreaker or watching on TV, this is still Real Talk TV. Tonight we're going to just talk about my escapades on my road trip to San Diego and drive to Michigan. It's been a few weeks since I've been here. We've missed a few episodes. As you can see, we've got a different studio again, and things are constantly changing here. When I left, my producer Lou had some physical problems, and he wasn't able to communicate with me, and I wasn't able to get the stuff produced and up on the YouTube. So people ask me, why don't I do this myself? That's because I need Lou to get the stuff up on the internet. I just talk, he does the rest of this stuff. It's a team effort, and well, it'll always be that way. We found out, my son found out trying to help me do it, that it's not as easy as it seems to be. But we're back and we're having fun. Went to San Diego, as everybody knows, to help my son move he got discharged from the Navy. He served 9 years in the Navy, and finally got discharged. And he was supposed to be discharged on the 17th, and I flew out on the 14th, and we got stuck there until the 11th of September. And it was a lot longer trip than what I expected, but it was still a lot of fun. I got to spend a lot of time with my son. Got to see his kids when we got to Michigan. Got to see my other two kids, getting ready to go back real soon. My oldest son just and his wife, of course, just had a baby boy. Going up there to see him. But we're going to talk a little bit about things that happened out in San Diego. Hopefully you all watched the interview that I did with a young man out there that was in the Navy with my son, Andres. It was a very good interview, good hometown story. Those of you who watched it, you noticed that he was a Mexican-American, an American of Mexican descent, is more the correct term for it. And San Diego is a good place to showcase just what immigrants do for our country and mean to our country, legal immigrants. Now these people that I'm going to tell you about immigrated, generations ago. The people that I met were all born here in America. But I had several different stories of people that were born here in America but grew up, two in Mexico. One was Andres, and one in the Philippines. They had parents in both countries, and so they grew up with dual citizenship. And when they turned 18, they came back to America and got jobs. And Andres is in the Navy. Another gentleman that I met out there, Chris, is a mechanic, and he was born here in America. He is an American. He works here in America, and he actually lives across the border in Mexico because it's cheaper to live over there in Mexico, but he's an American. Now, if you look at these guys, the first thing you're going to say is illegal immigrants. Not a damn one of them is. They're all second and third generation Americans. They just still talk with an accent because they still spend a lot of time in their homeland, and several cases grew up there, even though they were born here in America. But they're excellent stories. I'm going to tell you about that. Andres, you've seen. Another one that I met, such story, was my good friend Al. And I'm going to give Al a good plug today. And if you guys out there in San Diego looking for a great mechanic, I want you to go see my friend Al. Now, I'm going to bring up my laptop here because I want to get all the addresses correct and everything. Get up. All right. Met Al a couple years ago when my son first went out there to San Diego. And on the way out there, he had some car trouble with a Jeep that he had purchased in Arizona, and that thing didn't make it, 1,000 miles, and the motor blew on it. I think it threw a rod or something, but it had to have the motor replaced when we got to San Diego. So the first place we looked up was a mechanic shop when we got into town, and we needed to get it off the U-Haul dolly and into a mechanic's parking lot right away. And we looked up all the places in town and got prices from all the places in town. And Barnett's Automotive on Barnett, obviously, in San Diego, it was over $500 cheaper than all the rest. It was quite a big difference. Everybody else was within $100 or $200 of each other, but Barnett's was by far the cheapest. And it wasn't because they gave us cheap work either. I mean, it was a brand new motor, and they took it all apart and put it all back together, and runs beautifully, just as good as any other place would have done. But for $500 to $700 cheaper, I'm going to say $5 because I don't want to go overboard. But not only was it great service, but these were a couple of the nicest guys that you ever want to meet. First guy that I met there was Chris, and he was a mechanic there, and he's since moved on to another job. But he's the gentleman I mentioned that he's born here in America, works here in America, and lives in Mexico because it's cheaper. He can get more for his money over there, and just the friendliest guy I ever met. And helped me out a lot while I was there. Even went out and played pool with him, went out to lunch once. It was kind of my San Diego buddies, I call them. That's where I hung out while I was in San Diego. I was down at the mechanic shop. Go down there and bug Al and Chris. But like I said, he was born here and lives in Mexico. And then the guy that owns the shop is Al. And his family comes from the Philippines. Now it's been a couple of generations ago. His mom lives in San Francisco. He's got 7 brothers and sisters. There's 8 of them all together, and most of them, there's I think 3 of them up in San Francisco with Mom. Al's in San Diego. His 7th brother is there somewhere near San Diego, and the rest are in the Philippines. Again, one of them retired from the Navy, and he's gone back there and he's living pretty good. But these are great Americans, and you look at them, you go there, you're going to look at them as we do, and say, you're Mexican immigrants. One guy's not even Mexican, he's Filipino, but you're going to say he's Mexican. Some comedians make jokes about that. If you're in California, you're Mexican. If you're in Florida, you're Cuban. If you're in Tampa, you're Puerto Rican. But it depends on where you go, you're going to get judged. But these people are Americans. They're as American as you and me. So, and some of the nicest folks I've ever met. So these are the kind of people I'd like to see immigrate to my country. I don't care if they come from Mexico, the Philippines, or where in the hell they're coming from. I'd like to see some of them legally immigrate over here. Now, we've got an immigration issue right now going on where apparently we're going to let in 100,000 refugees from, I don't know if it's the Syrian war or they're coming from Europe, and it's an overflow thing from Europe and the Syrian war, and I don't think that's a good idea at all. You know, I would rather let 100,000 Mexicans in and send these guys over to Mexico and let El Chapo deal with them, because in 100,000 people, how many of them are going to sneak in that are terrorists, you know, or that aren't necessarily fleeing from, but fleeing to? I don't think we need that mix. I'm not racist against Muslims, and they do have to go somewhere, but that's one of those not my backyard deals. I don't think I want that in my backyard. I think that's asking for trouble personally. What do we do about the refugee crisis? Send them back home, you know. Blow up the people doing war over there, and send these folks back home. Clear out the sandlot. Just get it done. We need to do something with the ISIS situation, you know. And it's not going to get done sitting on our asses and waiting for them to do it. If we wait for them to do it, ISIS is going to have control of nukes. Then them is going to come after us. So we don't want to go that route. Anyways, like I said, you heard from my buddy Andres. I had several other interviews set up while I was out there with Navy personnel, but as you can see from the interview that Andres did and what he said, they don't have a lot of time. So unfortunately, we weren't able to squeeze in the other three that we had lined up. And since Robert's out, we're not going to get to do it again, but I hope to get a interview eventually from my son Robert. We were going to do it on the trip, but we just never really had the time, and at the end of the trip didn't have the energy, so that never happened. You know, I've got 3 kids I'd like to interview that all have great stories to tell, and maybe on this next trip when I go up, might get an interview from 1 or 2 of them, but we'll see. You know, it all depends on their busy schedules. You know, they're young, important people, so we have to work around all that. And anyway, like I said from the beginning, the trip to San Diego didn't go the way we planned. From the beginning, it was supposed to have been 10 days, and it turned out to be 5 weeks. And that's because Washington, not blaming it on, you know, bureaucrats or politicians, or definitely not the Navy, but the civilians working in Washington doing the paperwork, the paper pushers, don't really care about you when you're getting out of the service. If you're going from one duty station to another, they're you're in this pile, and they got to get that done. Otherwise, they're in trouble because that guy's got to be somewhere in 2 weeks. But if you're getting out, well, we're not going to touch that pile until we're done with this pile. So you can wait, until we're ready. And it took him 3 weeks longer than it should have, to get out. And then once they got his papers, it was get the hell out. Talk about hurry up and wait, and then hurry up and get the hell out. It was not what we planned. We originally planned to have a nice leisurely drive up to Michigan, take our time, enjoy the ride, and instead it was a mad dash, because my son had been there, already 2 months by himself, and it just had been too long, and we needed to get the trip over with. I could have went later, but when you talk to your son, and he's been alone for 2 months, and he says he's tired of it, he's lonely, and he's tired of being alone, well, you get on a plane, right? What else are you supposed to do? It's your babies come first, right? I didn't have anything pressing going on here, so we did as much work as we could on the show before I left, and then I got on a plane, and we ended up sitting there. But least my son wasn't alone, so we got that out of it. And that was the main point of the trip, was to make sure that he wasn't lonely, didn't have to be alone while he was waiting to leave, and he didn't have to be alone on that long drive across the country. And I was quite looking forward to that in the beginning. If we'd have done a nice, leisurely drive, that would have been a grand old time with my son. We could have stopped here and there, and maybe had a beer. We would have stopped overnight twice instead of once. But instead we ended up power driving through the night. A good thing I have insomnia. I was a good night driver, and that was about it. In my condition, I wasn't able to drive as much as I wanted to, but 6 hours was about the longest I got in at a time before I had to pull over and switch. But we made it there a pretty good time. We stopped in Colorado. It was our first stop, and it was an interesting stop, to say the least. I gotta say, they have the legal marijuana out there, recreational and medicinal. So naturally, being a medicinal user myself, first dispensary we passed, we stopped in at. And got to give another shout out there to, let's see. I was too busy talking about Barnett's. Oh, I forgot to didn't even give you the address here for Barnett's. Barnett's Auto. You can contact Al. I got off that subject already, didn't I? You can contact Al by calling 619-550-1368 or online at barnettauto.com. I'll repeat that again. Get a pencil. 619-550-1368 or online at barnettauto.com. Now it's 3006 Barnett Avenue. If you're going out to sea, guys, you folks in the Navy, most of you guys out there listening are Navy people, you need to know that your car is in good shape for your wife. Or your husband, if you're a woman going out. If you got kids back home, you got to have a good car, right? Bottom line. So if you're having any problems, take it up to Al at Barnett's Auto. He's a great guy, good American, and he'll do you guys right. He'll always greet you with a smile. Now, back to Colorado. When you get to Colorado, if you're vacationing up in Colorado, I recommend you check out the Manitou Springs and the Manitou Inn and Suites. It's a nice little town up in the mountains, right down the street from the dispensary. And speaking of dispensaries, be sure to stop at Emerald Fields and check out the products for sale. Even if you're not interested, even if you're not interested in buying anything, it's a must-see adventure to go in these dispensaries and see what it's really all about. Thank you. It's so much different than anyone would picture. It's more like going into a jewelry store than a drug store or anything like that. Everything's behind glass cases and the bulletproof glass and all that kind of thing. You have to take a number, go into a room, and they show you the samples, and you've got a menu like a restaurant that tells you exactly what it is, what type of strand it's from, whether it's high in THC or CBD, exactly what the content is of everything, and of course the price. And you get to choose what you're trying to fix. For me, somebody that's looking for medical relief, you get to choose what you want. I'm not looking for something that's going to knock my head out of the park. It won't do it. Did I try some of that? Yeah. Did it do it? No. I noticed the effect. It was 60% THC, and I definitely got my attention, but it was great on pain relief. It, I was exhausted when we got there, and I just was revived from it. Instead of going to sleep, I ended up sitting up, talking, and think I could get an interview? No. All the people in Colorado want to talk, but not on camera. I don't know if it's the weed. Everybody's paranoid, but they got a lot of crazy reasons. Some of them are government spies. They're wanted. People will kill them if they show their face on camera. And you're telling this to a stranger? Really? I don't buy that story. I think you're full of shit. But I can see the guys that were doing the marijuana growing and then things like that. There were people staying at the hotel that were working at the warehouses doing the clipping and that sort of thing. They had interesting stories to tell about the mountains of marijuana that they processed that day, and the quality of it and all of that sort of thing. And it was a very interesting evening. I wish I could have stayed longer. Anybody that knows the laws there in Colorado, you only get to purchase 1/4 ounce per day. So my one day was my one day, and it was fun, and I'd love to go back. But that was my trip to Colorado. It was a good time, and I'd recommend anybody going on a vacation, if you don't have a destination already picked out, travel through Colorado at least, on your way to wherever you're going. The mountains are beautiful, and if you should decide to partake in the dispensary, you will sit back and relax and enjoy that beautiful mountain view even more. So, of course, it's not like it used to be, and it's not like you see in the movies with the half-baked or, that sort of thing. They've got this stuff down to a science now. Not only do you have the marijuana, but you can get candies, chocolates. You got the wax and the vape pens and that too, which is very good. It's very, very potent. But for those who don't like to smoke and need the medication, you've got all those edibles. And they've got everything. I mentioned the dispensary. They have everything that you need to go with it. If you want to buy the wax or the oils, you have that capability. And you can not only buy that, you can buy the utensils to go with it, the vape pens and all of that stuff. You can buy everything right there under one roof. And it's good quality stuff. Like the black market stuff, it holds nothing on this. So there's a reason why it's more expensive. There's a reason why it's behind bulletproof glass, because it is worth some money. And eventually it's going to be a big industry across our nation. It's just a matter of time. And eventually the will of the people will win out. And 80% of America is already for at least legalization of medical marijuana, if not full-on recreational marijuana. There was never a reason for it to be made illegal to begin with, and eventually that right will be wrong, and that situation will be overturned, and people will be able to get their medication, and the rope industry and the paper industry and several other industries that have been holding back the marijuana and hemp industries will get their stuff back. It's a whole nother industry that is getting ready to kick off, and the sooner we get with it, the sooner we can get out of our bad economy. Places that have legalized it are prospering, and those that haven't are going to catch up later. Florida is a state that hasn't legalized it yet, and Florida is a state that needs to, because not only do we have a lot of old, crippled people like me that are in great need of it, but the economy really needs it here. The economy in Florida sucks, and I don't have to go out and get a job. I wish I could, but I'm on disability, so I'm really out of the workforce. But I got family that is working here, nieces, nephews, things like that, and trying to find a decent job here is impossible. You need to have a good skill, like Charlie the plumber, Charlie the racist ass American plumber that was on a few shows ago. The infidel, he has a good skill. He can make a good living here in the state of Florida. But without that kind of a skill and without that kind of training, you're not going to get anywhere here. So that's something that we need to work on here in our state and really across the country, is educating our kids so that when they get out of high school, they need more than a high school education. They need some sort of skill training. They need to go on and get either an associate's degree at minimum, or a certification of some kind in some field that will get them a job. And we've talked about that before, and we'll talk about it again. But anyways, the last stop on my trip was Michigan, and I got a few shout outs for Michigan too. Even though I paid for it later, I had to stop at my favorite pizza joint in Michigan there. It's Paisanos, 12 and a half in Harper. Got to stop there. It's a four generations of family business. I've been eating there since I was a kid. 5 generations of my family have enjoyed 4 generations of their cooking. And it's a good tradition that will continue to go on probably throughout a couple more generations, I hope. The Marino family ended up going to school with the grandsons of the original Marino. And it's a great family restaurant. I recommend it to anybody. Also, those of you that know me know that I do embroidery, and I have a cohort in Michigan that I trained, so I have to recommend her. And her name is Mary Ann, and she runs So Saintly on the corner of 10 Mile and I-94. And if you have any embroidery and you're in Michigan and don't want to send it to me, go to Mary Ann. She's the best embroiderer in the state of Michigan, I guarantee it. All right, now that's it for the shout outs today. I think that's all the time we have for today. We're going to start doing these shows at about 30 minutes apiece, and then try and keep your attention a little bit more. Hopefully we're going to have some guests come on. Idle is not up to doing the co-host, so hopefully he's going to be a regular guest when he's up to it. He's got a lot going on his plate. And of course, me and Lou. One thing I can't go off without mentioning, have an event coming up. Late November, getting together with SBS Events, Sideshow, my old buddy from Blunt Talk, and getting the gang back together, me, Lou, Sideshow, Skinny's Bar and Grill. We're going to do a foam and glow party. And that's kind of a college rave sort of party. And I personally, I've never been to one, so this is going to be an interesting event for me. It's going to be a must-see for me, and I hope you guys will come out and join us. We're going to do a show before the party, and we're going to be going live from Skinny's. Like I said, late November. I'll keep you posted as to the exact date as I get the information. But we're going to have raffles and prizes and 4 DJs and even some go-go dancers. So it's going to be quite a hoot. We're going to have a good time. Keep tuned to see what's going on here. Check out our Facebook page And don't forget to check us out on Twitter. Give us some hashtags. Hashtag Real Talk Stitch. Hashtag Sideshow. Hashtag Kennedy Studios. And check us out on Facebook. Like our page. Share it, please. That's the way we grow. We had this show up and running there for a while. Our hits are down since I've been on the road, but we're going to get that flow going again, and hopefully we'll be back. I'll be back soon. I'm not going to tell you how soon, because we might do more than one a week. We're going to see what happens here. Or it may stretch a little longer than a week, because like I said, I'm going on the road. So we're going to see what's happening, and until next time, America, good night.